The bell above the fast food restaurant door jingled, and a customer stormed in, face flushed with fury. "This is ridiculous," he shouted, slamming his order receipt on the counter. "I've been waiting for over 30 minutes for a simple burger." Samantha, the young worker behind the counter, glanced up. Her hands shook as she grabbed the receipt. Her heart sank when she realized something was off. The man's order had only been placed 5 minutes ago. Before she could speak, he leaned in, his voice venomous. "I demand to speak to the manager, now." But the words barely left his lips when the lights flickered once, then again. The sound of the kitchen's grease fryer sputtered, a sharp pop echoing through the air. Then, as quickly as it had started, everything went silent. The hairs on the back of Samantha's neck stood up. Something wasn't right. Samantha's fingers gripped the edge of the counter, trying to steady herself. The room was unnervingly still. The customers, who had been milling around just moments before, were now completely silent. They stood frozen, as though caught in a moment of time. The man's face, still contorted with anger, seemed to blur around the edges, like a figure out of focus in a photograph. Samantha blinked rapidly, trying to clear her vision. Are you okay?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The man didn't respond. His eyes locked on something behind her. Samantha slowly turned around, her breath catching in her throat. A tall figure, dressed in a black suit, stood in the doorway. His presence was almost suffocating, and the room seemed to grow colder the longer he remained there. It wasn't the manager. This man was unfamiliar. The air was thick with tension. "Is there a problem here?" the man asked, his voice low and unyielding. The rude customer stammered, his arrogance faltering under the man's gaze. There's a mistake with my order, and this girl is..." The mysterious man stepped forward, his shoes making an unsettling clicking sound on the tile floor. "I am the CEO of this establishment." The words hit Samantha like a wave of cold water. The CEO? Why was he here? And why had no one mentioned him before? The man's gaze never left the customer. Slowly, his lips curled into a smile that felt wrong. "I'm afraid," the CEO continued, his voice now a slow drawl, "that I've heard enough." The lights flickered again, this time more violently. Samantha's vision swam. Was she dizzy? Or was something more sinister happening? The CEO's eyes shifted to Samantha, his expression unreadable. "Would you kindly go into the back room? I'll handle this." Samantha, her nerves rattled, nodded and stumbled toward the employee-only door. As she passed by the kitchen, a strange odor hit her, a burnt, metallic scent that made her stomach churn. She stumbled, her mind whirling. What was going on? Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her. She spun around, heart hammering. Through the small window in the door, she saw the CEO and the rude customer engaged in a heated exchange. The customer was shaking his head wildly, trying to back away, but the CEO was too close, his hand gripping the man's shoulder tightly. Then the customer's eyes widened. No, I didn't mean it," he screamed, his voice filled with terror, but it was too late. The lights flickered one last time, then the restaurant was plunged into total darkness. The sound of struggling and muffled screams reached Samantha's ears. She didn't move. She couldn't. The oppressive silence that followed was suffocating. The lights came back on, and when Samantha dared to look through the small window, she froze. The customer was gone. Only the CEO stood there, his hand outstretched, a strange grin on his face. But that wasn't the most unsettling part. Behind him, on the counter, the customer's burger was perfectly assembled. The bun was strangely warped, the patty too dark, too crisp, almost like. Samantha felt the bile rise in her throat as she recognized the unmistakable red staining, the edges of the patty, the unmistakable glint of something human. The CEO turned slowly, locking eyes with her through the window. "It's a simple thing," he said softly, as if explaining a child's mistake. Customers always get what they deserve, and in the end, they are always served. But sometimes, the menu is different. Samantha's vision blurred. Her legs gave way beneath her. The last thing she saw before the darkness consumed her was the CEO walking away from the counter, a disturbing sense of satisfaction in his step. The bell above the door jingled once more. As her world faded to black, Samantha realized with chilling clarity, this was no fast food chain. It never had been.